Yes. Can somebody walk me through? Okay, she's down.
Down by the visitor parking?
Down,
Yep,
yeah.
I got you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Is she frozen? Very much. Is she frozen?
No, it's the audio's we can hear it now on the stream. I don't know if you want to mute it till they start, just in case people having conversations.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to get started with our open session meeting, so thank you all for your patience. Shay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes,
Dr. Quorum.
Dr. Von Elliott,
Present.
Ms. Harsley,
Present.
Dr. Coleman,
Present.
Ms. Tisworth, and Ms. Blaine.
Here. I believe that Jackson was going to try to join us in open session.
She has not joined.
She is not joining.
Yes.
Okay, we will go on and continue. May I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Been moved by Dr. Von Elliott. May I have a second?
Second.
The second by Ms. Tisworth to approve the agenda. All in favor? Aye. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We will now move to patrons' participation. Are there any patrons that would like to address the board?
No, ma'am.
We will therefore go on and move forward to the Riverview Garden Student Representative Report. They're not present. Okay, I understand. Thank you. We will go on and move forward. To board announcements, the board members have announcements. Therefore, I have an announcement to make. In closed sessions, the board agreed to approve the contract for, Dr. Tanya Paddle to become superintendent for 24-25 season. At this time, we would then therefore move on to the superintendent's report.
Before I make my report, I would ask, as you can see, we have a really hefty agenda. I would ask that everybody be quick and succinct to the point. Our board has read their packets. Do not speak verbatim. Be as swift as you can, only because we want to get you out. It is anticipated that the temperature will start to drop around 9 o'clock. We want everyone to get home safely. I know there are a couple of people in the room who have to drive 45 minutes to an hour. So once you present, then you can leave. If that's okay with the board.
Yes,
Okay, now for my announcements, just a couple of important things. School will be closed this Friday for professional development. We will also be closed on Monday in honor of Martin Luther King. The board meeting on the 23rd will be at Westview Middle School. It will start at 6:30 because we will also have a town hall following. During that town hall, we will go through the state of the district, give an update on the climate and culture survey, and introduce Prop S. Inclement weather notices have gone out to parents, and I'm pleased to say that all of our scholars have their at-home devices. Also, Linda Shamblick was asked too, was elected as the top career technical ed teacher of the year for IAOTP, and we will officially recognize her next month next month as a part of Riverview Excellence. That completes my announcement. The first item for information is the comprehensive student improvement plan. This is our second quarterly update. It's being presented on student performance. Making this presentation is members of the CNI team and the Director of Continuous Improvement, in addition with Dr. Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. Dr. Nichols.
Good evening, board members, current analysts, and colleagues. It's a state expectation for school districts to provide updates to the school board regarding the status of the district's comprehensive.
Excuse me, is there a mic up there? That way it gets picked up much better. I hear you.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. It's a state's expectation for school districts to provide updates to the school board regarding the status of the district's comprehensive school improvement plan. The purpose of the plan is to ensure that the district's instructional program and support programs are meeting the needs of all students. Take to the next slide.
Who has the preference?
To date, the Student Performance Committee has conducted 5 monthly subcommittee meetings. In addition, team members have also participated in 3 steering committee meetings in an effort to monitor the impact of strategies, action steps, and goals that are outlined in the comprehensive improvement plan. The 5 strands that this is focusing on are listed on slide 2. The first area is student performance. Second area is climate and culture, college and career readiness, attendance, and staffing and workforce. During the comprehensive school improvement process, several priorities were identified for an area of student performance. During the presentation today, the student performance team will provide an update for student performance data, professional learning communities, science, math, literacy, and the early childhood program. At this time, Dr. Kennedy will come forward to share information regarding the student performance data.
Good evening, SAP colleagues and community. On this slide that you have before you is our STAR reading data. And for those of you who don't know, we administer the STAR assessment to our scholars in both reading and math. We do that 3 times a year. We do it in September. We're currently doing it now, and then we'll do it again in April. So just to kind of comparisons, for comparison purposes, these are the percentage of students that are proficient in advanced. And what I did is I took the spring data from last year and I compared it to the fall data this year. And the areas that are highlighted green are areas that we showed improvement. So at the conclusion of this month, I'll take the spring off and slide over the fall and put in our winter data so we can get a more apples to apples comparison. Next slide, please. Again, this is our STAR math. Kindergartners do not take STAR math. It just goes from first through algebra 1. And again, you can see the areas that we showed improvement from last year to this fall. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the strategy for the student performance, and this is number 1. And if you take a look at where underneath the headings where it says science, math, and ELA, this is the way that we set our goals, and it is based upon the MPI, which is Math Performance Index. And what that means is that we get a score for the number of students in each of the achievement levels, and they're multiplied by different numbers. So it goes 1, 3, 4, and 5. And so then they add up the number of kids, and that's where we get our points. But you can see our baseline is to increase science 10%, ELA 10%, and math 15%. Then we can see if we can determine that growth. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce Ms. Barbara Sharp in her portion. Next, please.
Continuing with the presentation this evening to everyone. I will be presenting the student performance section, question 1, and that is what do we want all students to know and be able to do. So to the left, you have the action steps, and I think there might be a little bit of one, but so to the left, you'll have the action steps. These are all of the action steps that we have been involved in for the up to this point. And to the right, I want to point out the evidence. So you have the evidence in terms of the professional development calendar that lets you know all of the PD that has occurred this year as it relates to the CSIP goal. You also have a PowerPoint presentation from September and from October that gives you an idea of some of the leadership professional development that has occurred. We can go to the next slide, please. So looking at this slide, somehow that's blocking and I can't see. So we're looking at strategy 1 and still with question, I believe that's still with question number 1. Question 2, how will we know if students are learning? So you have there listed some of the evidence, and more specifically, you have a calendar that really supports the additional professional development that has occurred. So to the next I think we have one more slide, which is question 3. Okay, and question number 3, again, still working with strategy 1, but now question 3 says, what will we do if students don't learn? And again, the evidence that we have now is coaching reflections, and so I provided an example, I believe that's from Danforth, in terms of some of the coaching reflections. We can go to the next slide. At this time, Dr. Hunter will come for the science portion. She's our science coordinator, Dr. Hunter.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. J.K., colleagues, and community. I'm going to share with you all strategy 2, which focuses on the implementation of the tier 1. So basically looking for best practices to improve tier 1. And so focusing on science, the 5E framework is kind of our action step, and giving professional development to teachers, so that they're better able to implement the 5E framework. And the 5E framework just kind of includes engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and then evaluate. It's an instructional framework to help teachers with presenting science to students. And so my role in that has been to give professional development. And so I've given professional development to our elementary schools, Gibson, Coke, Meadows, Wilson, Clark, Master so far. And I've done that in the form of Let's Start Wednesday, as well as in staff meeting. POC, I've also gone and model for teachers in the classroom, as well as coach them on how to plan using the 5E framework. And with our secondary, I've done half-day PD sessions with our secondary group to kind of help them with the implementation of the 5E framework. In the evidence column, you'll see sign-in sheets from those professional developments, feedback from Kick-Up to see how teachers actually felt about those coaching events, those professional development events, as well as pictures from 5E actually being implemented here at the Gardens. And then there's a walkthrough tool, which is strictly used for professional development purposes. What happens is after I give the professional development, I go in with a walkthrough tool just to kind of see how teachers are implementing it. And it just informs me on how I can better support. And so at this time, I will now pass it over to Ms. Mai, who will talk to you all about that. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, Special Administrative Board, Superintendent Dr. Pruitt Adams, colleagues and community. In math, the action step to improve tier 1 instruction includes facilitating the implementation of best practices in tier 1, 2, and 3 mathematical instruction through professional development and ongoing coaching and support in the math workshop model and its components, as well as the concrete representational abstract model. So I just want to provide a little brief overview on those 2 models. The math workshop model is a organized and structured way, and predictable way to organize a math block. And it's divided into 4 parts. It's the warm up, which is about 5 minutes, usually like a number talk where the students are having a mathematical conversation on a computational problem, just with no paper and pencil, just mental computation, and being able to solve the problem, but also be able to justify the answer with a peer. And that takes about 5 minutes. And then you spend about 15 to 30 minutes, depending upon the lesson, doing a mini lesson with a clear learning target, modeling the strategy, introducing new concepts or vocabulary, using anchor charts, using manipulatives, digital tools such as Didax or Mathagon. And then you go from there to the difficult of the math workshop, which is the point where the teacher is pulling small groups. And the teacher's meeting with every student. So therefore, while the teacher is pulling small groups, the rest of the students are practicing math in lots of different ways. They could be responding to a math journal prompt. They could be practicing on adaptive math on Freckle. They could be working as hands-on with manipulative, solving problems, doing independent practice. But regardless, the teacher, what's most important is that the teacher is using the most recent assessment data to deliver differentiated instruction to every student. All right, so that doesn't matter if you're below basic, you're getting pulled, or if you're proficient, you're getting pulled, because everybody needs to grow. And then the last 3 minutes of that block is supposed to be for reflection and sharing. So that could be done with either turning and talking and sharing about the strategies you did that you learned, or it could be responding in a journal prompt. Okay. So, the benefits of using the math workshop model is that it allows the teacher to deliver differentiated instruction to every student, either every day or every other day, first of all. Yeah, it increases student engagement because students are doing something different like every 15 or 20 minutes during math stations. And they have more autonomy during that math block. It's just not a sit and get type thing. And then also, most importantly, it allows the teacher to progress monitor every day because he or she is meeting with small groups every day, correcting mistakes and helping them move forward. So the next model is the CRA, concrete representational abstract model. It is a structured and scaffolded way to deliver instruction. It's research-based. It's based on Jerome Bruner's theory of cognitive development, who stated that all students can learn if they're provided the appropriate instructional supports and scaffolding. And that's exactly what CRA does. It has stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Stage 1 is the concrete stage, or they call it the doing stage, because the students are physically manipulating objects to solve problems, so that they really can understand it. And then the stage 2 is the representational or pictorial, which they call the seeing stage, because they're drawing visual models or pictures to help understand it. And then the abstract model, where they're just working with symbols and numbers. And it's not just linear. The students are going back and forth between the stages to help until they understand, Okay, so as of today, I have provided professional development across majority of the schools in the district, all the elementary schools, and the middle schools and the high school. And I've done it in different formats that in order to meet the needs of the school. So for some buildings, it was convenient for me to come in during Late Start Wednesday. For some, it was during PLC's times where I'm meeting with each grade level. And for many, it was modeling lessons in the classroom. And that's what I've been doing a lot of. So working up close and personal with whatever particular math concept they need help with, that's what I'm modeling. Using the district resources and using the manipulatives, letting them see how you get the students to talk and interact and be more engaged with the math. And the student performance evidence that I have up there are some sign-in sheets from various professional developments I've facilitated, as well as pictures of students utilizing the CRA model and the math workshop, some of the math workshop components being embedded into the math line. Thank you. And now I'd like to, thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Ms. Ross.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Welcome.
Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. J.
She went.
Colleagues in the school community. So to follow up from what my colleagues have currently presented, I'm doing the English language arts portion of strategy 2. And basically I have 3 action steps. 1 is centered around the curriculum, the alignment of the curriculum to the Missouri learning standards, as well as the science of reading. You might recall, we've had a lot of conversations about the science of reading, and so we started with making the adjustments to the curriculum. The second action step follows right behind that with professional development with the science of reading, which shows up in letters training. That's the real big movement going around now, as well as Aspire, which is done at the secondary level. The third action step deals with interpreting data. And so all of our students are assessed several times through the year in that reading assessment, depending on if they are reading at grade level or not. If they're reading at least a year or more behind, then they have to be put on a reading success plan. And so the reading success plans have been developed and uploaded into SIS. They're currently being done. Most of them are done. Some of the other things over in the evidence column, the curriculum has been audited. We started that work this past summer. units, grade levels K through 2 have been aligned to the science of reading. Additional revisions include adding additional strategies with ELL so that we're in compliance with MSTEP 6. And the last that we had there, as all of my colleagues have already mentioned, professional development, we're doing in the building level, in small groups, even one-on-one, as it relates to best practices and how to use our instructional resources. Next, we have Dr. Williams coming up, and she's going to speak to the early childhood program.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. JTA, colleagues, and community. I am presenting the action step and quarterly update for the early childhood literacy component of the C-STEP. Action step number 1 entails that the school district will provide access to high quality early learning experiences birth through pre-kindergarten, and this includes pre-K literacy assessment. At the Early Childhood Center, we currently utilize the Missouri Chosen Curriculum entitled Project Construct. All of our teachers and instructional assistants, except for 5 staff members, have been trained in our Project Construct curriculum. As far as literacy is concerned, this curriculum promotes early literacy and expressive arts. The scholars are engaged in hands-on activities and lessons that teach practices that support children's development of vocabulary, oral language, phonological awareness, and reading and writing skills. On the evidence side, those are just informational pieces for Project Construct, my IFEs, and Dial for assessment. To make sure that we are providing a high quality learning program, we utilize the Dial for our assessment and the my IFEs, individual growth and development indicators. That's what that's called. That's also the pre-K component of the STAR that the K through 5 uses. All scholars have been given the opportunity to be screened upon entrance to the Early Childhood Center, and that information is given so we can put them in the appropriate classroom and prepare them for their success plan. For the Dial for assessment, it covers the areas of language and concepts for the literacy component. This includes answering personal questions, articulation, naming, identifying colors and shapes, and rhyming and phonemic awareness. So this also, it also has concepts and body parts and things like that. And this assessment also allows us information that we may find helpful in helping to choose, again, their child's classrooms and the delays that they may have so we can further give them services. The My EPs assessment is an assessment that we just started this school year, and it covers the area of early literacy, such as picture naming, rhyming, sound and ID, alliteration, and a section that is titled Which One Doesn't Belong. This assessment is given 3 times a year. We're on the assessment calendar with the school district. And so that gives us enough time for them to get instruction in between those times so they can be assessed again. After the scholars have taken all of these assessments, we use the information to drive instruction and to also put them in Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 group study for instruction. The second action step on there is early childhood literacy research and early literacy programs such as the Dolly Parton, YWCA, et cetera, to increase early access to literacy. I did have the opportunity to research and complete a mailing list inquiry for the Dolly Parton program. After doing that in September, at the end of September, I was at a MOPATA meeting, which is the Missouri Parents and Teacher Association, and they announced that they would be launching the Dolly Parton program throughout the Missouri, the whole state of Missouri. After that, we were able to send out those flyers from the PAT program and also the Early Childhood Center to the families. They are giving us some feedback on that, whether they have signed up for that. Those flyers were handed out to families. They were given a robocall about the program, along with a SIS-K email to all PAT and MOEC families, and it's posted on the website. We also have the delight of having a group called Ready Readers that come out. So they promote literacy in our program as well. There are volunteers that come and do read alouds and activities, namely activities for the teachers to do as well and for them to sit home. So that's making a home connection. This builds vocabulary, fluency in reading, and establish a foundation for great learning, reading, and a lifelong learning. All of our classrooms currently go to the bookmobile. We also have the bookmobile today, so they go once a month. And so that's also a component that we utilize for our early literacy. So these are just some action steps that the Early Child Center has taken to ensure that we provide a high quality early learning experience from birth to pre-K. Do we have any questions about anything we have discussed today for the early childhood program?
Dr. Bonnet.
With the Nation Library, at the NC, do they have a paper flyer?
Yes,
They have a paper, component that could be mailed in, and I was just thinking about some of the families that they would do it, but that support would probably be needed. So I was just wondering if you all are trying to support them that more direct registration with that part, instead of it just being free to go.
right. So we could possibly do that. That was a thought. I like that idea. We can incorporate that and perhaps set up a table for them to do it, because it does have a QR code on it as well. And so we could set up a table for those who have a hard time having access to technology and things like that to try to sign up for that. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. I had a question about data, like the start reading data. I'm just trying to make sure that so basically, the first grade data for spring 23 would actually be the second grade data for fall 23?
Yes.
Okay, so is it an accurate measure to suggest that is a decrease, or are they tested on something different?
So the assessment is what I'm trying to think, it is adaptive. And so, whenever the student, takes the test, they have to answer, I think, 3 or 4 practice questions. And then once they pass those practice questions, then, it puts them in at the grade level. And then if they get the questions right, then it pushes them up. If they get it wrong, then it pushes them down. So it's adaptive.
Okay, so we're not really doing apples for apples when it,
We will when we complete the winter session.
okay,
Yes.
so it will reflect more like a decrease
Yes,
from, okay.
hopefully increases. So hopefully increases.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
they'll be taking it again when?
They're taking it right now.
Oh, they take it,
They'll conclude, the 31st of the month.
okay, so then that'll be a better apple to apples to say.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect, thank you.
Okay.
In conclusion, the CSIP Student Performance Committee believes that students can accelerate at high levels when provided in positive and conducive learning environment. Districts can produce positive student outcomes when the appropriate support, resources, and instructional processes are implemented with fidelity. The committee will continue to monitor the impact of the action steps and strategies outlined in the student performance strand to ensure that the district is on track with meeting the goals for improving student learning in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. I was remiss as Ms. Sharp is coming up with one of my announcements. The spelling bee is actually, this week on the 11th. It starts at 10 o'clock and it's at Moline Elementary School. The next item, is the solution tree update. Making this presentation, this Barbara Sharp, Executive Director of Continuous Improvement and Title IX, and joining her is Dr. Terry Martin, the Zoom, our representative from Solution Tree. This is compliance with district policy and instructional goals, as well as CSIP student performance.
Thank you, Dr. Kurt Adams. Obviously, we have, my colleague supporting me, she's online, practice this, completely different ways. And so we are now trying to ad lib. So I need the PowerPoint presentation, please. So in an effort to provide updates, we have been working strategically to provide presentations. And so tonight, Dr. Martin is here with me, with us, and so she will be sharing in this presentation. I will share with you, obviously, that as the board, you approved a multi-year contract with Solution Tree. And so tonight's presentation is simply fulfilling the obligation by keeping the board informed. Dr. Martin will come in just a moment, but I do want to share with you, you have another document, and that document on page 5, I believe, gives you a summary of the ratings. So you'll see a lot of data that she's going to be presenting. So you'll have a rating, see ratings from 0 to 4. And you will also see at the end of the packet, there are ratings that begin from 1 to 4. And so as she goes through her presentation, she will be sharing a little bit more information. I do want to point out that Dr. Martin serves as Vice President of Business Development for Solution Tree. And so now we will hear from Dr. Martin.
You're muted. Dr. Martin, you're muted.
That is always the hardest part of my presentation. It's good to see you. I will try to make this very quick because I'm in Columbia and we have the snow that you guys are getting.
So as she's
We
unmuting,
cannot hear you.
as she is unmuting, as
She's
she's ready for the next screen, then she'll let us know.
She is unmuted. We just can't hear her.
Oh, yeah. Hello.
We still can't hear you, so give us a second.
All right. Can you hear me now? Yeah, all right. We're good?
Would it help if she goes out and comes back in?
No, we heard us. We heard
You heard her?
Can you hear me now?
Say
Put a
something,
microphone in front of.
Hello?
Dr. Martin, say something now.
Can you hear me now? I could just keep talking.
Okay, I need, we can, hold on.
Okay. Hello?
Hold on. Dr. Martin.
Can you hear me now?
Barely, so hold on.
Let's try it again, Dr. Martin.
All right, can you hear me now?
Can't hear it all.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Need a microphone over there or?
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Now can you hear me?
So we see.
Okay,
Yes.
Dr. Martin.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Vaguely.
We can hear you a little bit.
Well, I can yell.
Is there volume on the sport board?
Oh, is there? Yeah, is that on audio on the smart board?
Now talk.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Better than we could.
It's good?
That's better.
Goodish.
Well, I can work with goodish if you can.
We'll just get really quiet.
All right, well, do you want me to start?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Let's stop right. Would you go back one slide just for 1 second to slide 3? Okay, thank you. This is just a slide of all the services. Some of this has actually been mentioned in the CSIP. I loved hearing what the presenter said about your comprehensive school improvement plan, because there is so much good work that's in that plan. And what I'm going to share with you in 5 minutes or less, I promise, are just the highlights of the implementation that's happening with this process called professional learning communities that kind of ties all this together. So and I'll be glad to talk in depth about any of this at some point in time, but these are all the services that are being provided. Next slide, please. But the biggest thing is that the services that are provided are wrapped around these 9 areas. And if you look at the bottom of this page, it says report pages 32 through 41. Ms. Sharp talked about the report packet that you have. And in that report packet, you have 41 pages of different things to look at. You can look at school by school by school. And in the back of it, you can look at all of these 9 continuums in depth on how we measure the growth. So keep these in mind, because I'm going to talk about 2 of them in just a minute. Next slide, please. And so what I'm going to do is talk about our kind of this data aggregated together. We monitor the data all the way through, just like now all your schools are your schools, and in your comprehensive school improvement plan, you're monitoring data and then making immediate changes to make sure that you're moving forward. Next slide, please. So one aggregate of the data that we looked at was each of the continuums. There's those 9 continuums. We put them together. We looked at them, and we will do this periodically. But for this report, when we looked, 8 out of 9 of those continuums showed improvement. Now, I'm going to just spend 1 second on, well, which one didn't show improvement? And actually, it's the continuum where we ask people to start thinking about, what are you going to do with kids when they already know everything? And we've been working so hard on making sure that kids know it that we haven't spent much time yet on that piece of, oh, you already know it, let's move you higher. But we're going to start, we're working on that one too. But the one continuum that had the greatest improvement was engaging in the right work. And so next continuum, it's on page 5 in your hand, or in your booklet that you have, but the next page will show you.
I think she said the next slide.
I'm sorry, slide 7. I should say slide. I'm so sorry. That's probably confusing. So on slide 7, this is a kind of a description of engaging in the right work. And when the one sentence in there that I wanted to point out was that it is taught that teachers are working in recurring cycles, unit by unit. They're doing collective inquiry and action research to say, okay, did our kids get it? And if they did, great. How do we move on? But more than that, they're focusing on, and if they didn't, then what are we going to do about it? And how are we going to make sure that we're achieving better results for our students? And that's just a common theme throughout all the work. Slide 8, please. So another way that we looked at this data was school by school. So if you look across the bottom, you'll see all the schools. And we've already done 3 different assessments. We did a baseline data. Here's where we started, which is the blue. And then we did spring of last year, which is the green. And then we did fall of this year, which is the darker blue. And so you can see that that there's actually always growth between where we started and where we are. Sometimes we do drop off a little bit when we get back into school, just because it's been summer. But when you look at all of these, 9 schools are starting their work for year 2 at a higher average score than they did the last year. So you could put a lot of blame there and say, okay, yeah, but that's only 9 schools. Well, let's look at slide 9 real quick. But here's things you have to think about. Those schools, you can't blame teachers, you can't blame administrators. It's not a blame game. Instead, it's, okay, so what's in these schools? What do we need to provide for these schools that may not be as improving as quickly as other schools? And it may be that they were doing some changes in their operation. There's always change in leadership, and that makes a difference. And changes in teachers too. Even if you get the best teacher in the world, if it's a new teacher to that environment, it makes a difference. And so those are just some of the things. but the neatest thing about our process is we're talking right now about everything kind of in an aggregate, but the coaches that are in each of those buildings are really just worried about that building that they're in. So they're looking at the data for that school. What do we need to do for that school to move that school forward? And how can we work with leadership and teachers to have that happen? And those coaches have formed some fabulous relationships with your wonderful teachers and leaders. Slide 10, please. So this is just one more look at data that we're going to look at. We also look at trends. And so we took each of those 9 continuums and we looked at the trend line for each of them. The first 4, even though there's an up and down on some of them, you can see that the trend is up. That's great. That's what we're looking for. Slide 11, please. 4 more. So 8 out of the 9 now. We've got this upward trend. You can see that the growth is going up. One more slide, please. Slide 12. There is one that is not going up, and that's shifting from all to each. And this is part of the reason why I was so excited what everybody was saying about the comprehensive school improvement plan, because all those folks were talking about how they're doing things with teachers to help them be able to go from, I'm not just sharing information with students, I'm responsible for each one of these students learning. And what do I need to know to make that happen? Next slide, please. And so this is that one continuum that we really are going to continue to work on, shifting from all to each. And I'm going to take just a second. This is also page 38 in that booklet that you have. But look at all the work that happens here. School schedules, operational systems, grouping of students, any activities impacting student learning are all focused to provide each student with the necessary skills and knowledge to become proficient in the guaranteed and viable curriculum. All decisions are made with this purpose as the most crucial goal. It puts such an emphasis on every single student and the learning of every single student. And that's what's happening in your schools. Next slide, please. I promised 5 minutes or less. Questions, if you have any, I'm glad to answer, but you want to get out of there so you can share them with somebody else and I'll answer them later. And then the last slide. Thank you.
Is there any questions?
I know that this information was given very quickly. We have a barrier in terms of her being out, not being within the district. And so if there's a need for additional follow-up, I will work with Solution Tree and we can come back and address any issues or concerns that you may have. We're trying to work given the conditions that we have. So I want to thank Dr. Martin for coming online. I believe are you in Jefferson City?
Columbia.
Columbia. So we do have something like weather there as well. Any questions?
Yeah, what we're seeing results.
We're seeing results of a process. We're putting systems in place. So that's what this work is about, putting those systems in place. And as a result of that, you know, she showed you several different models and you can look at over a period of time and how they have conducted various assessments. And we can see how schools are working to implement these processes. And so that's what she showed.
And we have the data that says when those processes are firmly in place, student achievement increases. And so the two go side. Oh, sorry.
Said that when the processes are in place, student achievement starts to change.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
we have all kinds of
can-
data that supports that.
And I can speak for going into the schools and observing the work that's going on in schools. And principals are really working hard to implement these processes. So it's a process. It doesn't occur overnight. It takes time. And we're moving in the right direction.
Absolutely.
I have a question around sustainability because of changes in administration. How can we ensure this process going forth, even with shifts in administration?
And can I answer that?
What happened? Woo!
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Sorry. Actually, we so agree with you. That's our biggest thing is how do you make it sustainable? Which is why there's multiple layers of training that we train teachers at the same time that we train principals at the same time that we train district level so that there's that, you know, overarching knowledge all the way. We've seen, I can't say that it doesn't make a difference if a principal moves because it does. But if you've got the process embedded enough, then even your hiring practices, all of those things then become part of supporting the sustainability of the process.
So is there like, a portal with videos or manuals that kind of document these processes for, future use? How does that work?
What
So-
we,
I can speak to, the coaches that are working with the various schools. And what they're doing is creating a data dashboard, if you will. That's something that's within each particular school, but they have all of the processes and procedures that they're using within their school. And so, part of the work is as we're going into schools, having conversations, we get a chance to look at the data, see where people are, and just having some one-on-one conversation. Because the principals are really working to implement this process. And it doesn't occur overnight. It takes time for this.
Is there any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Martin.
be safe.
Thank
too,
you.
thank you. The next item is a report tied to our work that we're doing with Turnaround Schools and Solution Tree. It's a student performance presentation for Danforth and Highland. Making the presentations tonight are Dr. Stout and Mr. Lenoir. This is in compliance with CSIP students' performance.
Thank you again. So we will hear from our principals in terms of the work that they are focused on. Their work they're focusing on is looking at the 30, 60, 90-day plans from their coaches. They're looking at attendance and a variety of different types of data. And so Mr. Lenoir will be the first individual that will come forward and he will begin his presentation. We're looking for the PowerPoint.
2 minutes, I got you.
And then we have something already. If that's,
Greetings, Special Administrative Board, Dr. JPA. I'm Mr. Lenoir, Principal of Danforth Elementary. If you go to the first slide. All right, so we're gonna keep moving. If you look at our status of our goals, our 30 and 60-day goals, we have completed on the leadership learning side. It's still ongoing on 90 days. With our collaborative structure, this is something that is an ongoing process as the teachers grow. And when we talk about putting those processes in and getting better at it, our teachers are still growing and becoming better at utilizing the PLC's process. Turn to the next page. Here are some of our school-wide celebrations. We've collected a lot of things and we've given out bike raffles for academics, attendance, and behavior. And so we're trying to build a culture of success in the school. If you turn over to our 90 attendance data, the next slide. As you can see, in August and September, we were doing great. And as we've gotten to November, December, we started falling off. And so we're doing a lot of things. When you turn over to the next slide with the interventions, tier 1 is a lot of parent contact letters, parent meetings, and we have done several home visits. And with those home visits, sometimes we find out that our parents need other additional supports, like help with electricity or things like that matter. So we make sure that we do a lot with providing those opportunities for our parents. Okay, on to the next slide. Our Math Smart goals. Here's 2 things that we have. Our SMART goal is focused on growing from 3rd through 5th grade. 3rd to 5th grade, we're growing our API scores up to 50%. That's our goal. And for kindergarten, 2nd grade, it's to increase a 1 grade level, which is called 50% SBG. 2 action steps that we're truly focusing on, and we've had Ms. Mott in our building, and she is actually going to be doing a workshop again is that all teachers will implement the math small group instructional math work model in an effort to differentiate instructions. And in grades 3 and 5, we have been doing a lot of focus on preparing students with math-like type tests. So it's something that the students see every day and not when they get the math test. If you look at our scores, the scores pretty much show that this is the reason why we need to make sure we focus down on those maths. We're also doing one, if you turn over to our tier interventions, once again, we're following the RGS curriculum. We have Ms. Mott coming in and she described the CR8 model for you. We do daily intervention time, so the schedule is set. So we have daily intervention time with math. Freckle is utilized a lot for a whole group and individual things. And also next week we are starting for tier 3. We're starting a after school program for those students who really need support in their math. So I have 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade levels where we'll be doing that with those scholars. And I'm gonna pass it on over to my colleague, Ms. Hannah Stout. Less than 2 minutes, mic drop.
Good evening, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, Special Administrative Board, colleagues, and community. I'm excited to talk to you about the work we're doing at Highland today. We can go to the next slide. The slides are going out of order, so I'm going to talk in order, but if it's a little bit confusing, that's why. So starting with the 30, 60, 90-day goals, we focus primarily on developing and implementing collaborative teams. So our grade level teams meet weekly and they collaborate around unpacking standards, planning instructions, and internalizing the lessons that they will teach with their scholars. So we have spent a lot of time on that and we'll continue working to support teachers to implement high quality instruction every day in our classrooms to support our scholars learning. In turn, you can go to the next slide. So it should be status goals, next steps. Okay, so in terms of next steps, we will be training and supporting our teachers to build and implement what we call common formative assessments, CFAs, which measure the impact of instruction and help us to make instructional shifts as they are needed. Next slide.
Next.
The next slide is school-wide celebrations. So we have some photos there. We really focus in on high yield instructional strategies. And so here we have some photos from each grade level of our scholars engaging in those high yield strategies in their classroom. One that is super important is direct instruction. And so that is when the teacher works with the whole group on a targeted lesson with a clear lesson focus. So lots of good stuff happening there. We can go to the next slide. All right, so our 99-day attendance data. We know that attendance is a concern and that we have a lot of work to do in that area. And so on the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the strategies that we are implementing to support our families and scholars to be at school so that they can learn. Next slide. Okay, so some things that we are doing to support strong attendance are supporting our families. So providing incentives for scholars in terms of celebrations when they have strong attendance. Providing some incentives to parents, thanking them for having their scholars at school on time and at school daily. For families who have some challenges, we have weekly letters that go out to talk about where we are on the continuum and how we can support. We check in individually with students and scholars as well. And then I would like to thank Dr. Singleton and her student. We have been able to provide a second bus for our school, specifically to support our scholars who have had attendance challenges. And so our hope there is that that will support increased attendance and have our babies at school every day. We're also meeting individually with families and, identifying what supports that families might need. One of the things that came out of a lot of those meetings was transportation. And so Dr. Singleton is now walking back in. Thank you to Dr. Singleton and First Student for, partnering with us to provide additional transportation for our scholars. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, so when we talk about math, our big goal for this year is to really make sure that tier one is strongly in place, leading to growth on the math assessment. So our goal is for at least 50% of our scholars to score proficient or advanced on the math assessment by May 2024. So we are partnering with our solution tree coach, with our instructional coach, and Ms. Mott has been into support as well. Really planning and internalizing our curricular resources to support instruction every day in the classroom, starting with that tier one and relying heavily on strong implementation of the PLC model. Okay. I think I'm passing it back to Ms. Sharp. Thank you.
So we'll take any questions that you may have at this time.
I don't know who would be able to answer this, but with the students that are not able to attend school, are we still incorporating technology some way for them to access instruction when they're not here?
So the question is about, your access and for students who are absent, are you using technologies to provide support?
Yeah, we do use technology if it's something like, if we had a snow day. Short term, there are sometimes the issues of, say, the student has no Apple, or if it's something we have to be there. But long term, that's not something that we typically done where the students working through technology. But with short term, when the kids gonna be out a few days, the teacher communicates through Google Classroom, and also the teacher communicates through Class Dojo, and they also put assignments on Google Classroom. So kids have assignments if it's something short, but it's not something typically we do for a long term.
We are not a virtual school district that has a program that offers virtual learning. So we do it for short assignments, kids with 6, 504, but on a continuous basis. We are not a school district that has an application for virtual learning.
I was just wondering, like, if they're out of school, or they still have the ability to learn, given technology.
They even have the ability to also, when they return, to make up their work, and every single scholar has a device at home.
Right, through Freckle, the teacher can give assignments, so it's a lot of assignments that they can have and work on the complete to continue on their history.
So even with all of the accessibility that you are offering, do you have any information that says, yes, they are, even if they can't come to school, this percent of students are still getting their lessons, doing their homework?
Right, because
Do you know, are they still doing it with the virtual, even though we're not a virtual district? Are they still doing?
so if I'm your teacher and you're on my Google Classroom and I give you an assignment, you may complete that assignment at home, and the teacher grades it, and it's graded on Google Classroom. So they know if the student completes the assignment, because the assignment is done and turned in virtually.
So just, no, I'm not to answer right now, but I'd like to know what percentage of students are doing their lesson, learning, whatever, virtually when they are not in school.
That would have to be on a case by case basis, because it varies by school, it varies by individual. Because we are not a school that has a official launch virtual education program through MOCAP, which is what parents have to now enroll their students at, they are no longer then considered a Riverview Garden student. And so to try to get a percentage, you have to do it on an individual basis. Because collectively, a student could be out for any reason, and that does not mean that their parent or their child chooses to log into Google Classroom. But that's not how it is intended. That's not, is this all?
I can hear you fine, go ahead.
Okay, that's really not its intended use.
The best case scenario is for kids to be in school.
Yeah.
That is the best case scenario, and having direct instruction with his or her teacher.
Well, the reason I asked the superintendent is I appreciate the explanation. I'm listening to the way we're in my opinion, politically phrasing these terms. Okay? If a student is not able to come to school, that's one thing. If a student is not coming, or at least are they doing their work at home?
That is the hope. And the reason I say that is the hope that they do it at home and they are given an opportunity to make it up. Again, that's an individual basis. The students who maybe are home that can't come due to illness, they get homebound instruction. And so we know that they are getting the learning. But when students are at home, while we can send all the work, we can give them all the access points that they need, we cannot make them do it. That's an obligation that falls on the parent. And oftentimes that does not happen. Just like it's the parent's obligation to make sure that their students get to school.
And if those assignments are assigned, if the assignments are assigned, the expectation is that the student still gets that assignment because it's a graded assignment. So even when they come back to school, the expectation, if they didn't do it when I was at home, when they come back to school, you still need to get their work. So it's still an expectation that you complete those assignments.
My other question was, where are we in, I guess, going through that truancy process that we kind of talked about last year?
So
with the age group that they.
at the last meeting, Dr. Singleton, part of their presentation was on attendance and the things that we're doing to ensure that our students are in school. In fact, the first day back from winter break, he had representatives from every school in this district in this room talking about what could be done, what needs to be done in order to ensure attendance. And as we said last year, our biggest absenteeism comes from kindergartners. One reason is it's not mandatory by the state, and a lot of times the parents keep them home. And then the snowball effect to that, Dr. Singleton, correct me if I'm wrong, is if you have a middle schooler or a high schooler and the child doesn't come to school, they are often at home as a caregiver, so that they are not in school.
So yes, good evening, everyone. As Dr. Pruitt Adams mentioned, we are having our consistent attendance meetings, and all of these things are coming up, all of these conversations, and we are following the protocols that we have in place. After the third absence, we're sending those step letters. Remember, we discussed with you all the attendance contracts. We are coming up with all kinds of incentives and contests among schools and grade levels to make sure that our scholars are here. We're in transportation. All you gotta do is ask for it. Okay, we're making bus stops all over the place. And so we're doing everything that we can to support our schools and support our scholars. And again, going through that process of the attendance contracts, those kinds of things. But really, the onus has to be on the parents to work with us to make sure that our scholars are here in school. And that's really how we get those points with our 90-90 attendance, is our students have to be here.
The Social Security benefits and a lot of things are attached to
Well,
attendance, and so
that also came up.
if
in
it's
conversation.
known, then they may, make sure that they are there, because they'll get, in high school, they'll get a schedule, turn in their schedule, say that they are, in school and get their benefits, but someone needs to call and say they're not attending, then they'll be back in school.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that also came up in our meeting, that And as you said, a number of those social programs are tied to attendance. And if we reported those families who are showing and have excessive absenteeism, then obviously that can have a real negative impact. And I think we shared that information in a letter. In fact, Ms. Liddell and I were working on, that language. But that is something that is very true, that attendance is tied to some of those social programs.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask for as you all recall, we want to get this addressed. So if you have additional questions, not to cut you off, not to say your questions are not important, you can submit those questions because we want to be aware that the weather is going to get bad. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to just finally just acknowledge the work that both principals took in preparing this report for tonight, and to just thank them for their continued professional support.
Our next item is the Climate and Culture Fall 2023 survey review. This report will be given expeditiously, and it is in compliance with MSIP 6 requirements.
Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, colleagues and community. I am going to try to go through this pretty quickly. I did want to say for the presentation where we had trouble hearing on the YouTube stream, that audio should be great. So if anybody wants to go back and just listen to the live stream, you'll be able to hear her perfectly. I'm going to go to the second slide for the survey timeline. August 2023, we began developing the survey questions. That was part of the communications committee. There were also input from the district leadership team. September 2023, we reviewed the questions that had been submitted. And then in October 2023, we developed the survey, sent it out to parents, scholars, staff, and non-parental community stakeholders. Go on to the next slide. The methodology, the surveys were created through K-12 Insights survey platform, which we just got this year. Last year, we did a survey that was done through DESE, that was run totally by DESE. We sent it out. DESE sent us the results. We didn't have the full information that we normally get, like how many people responded. So you'll see when I get to those slides, you go back to the spring survey of 2022, because that's the last one that we did in-house. Going to the next slide. So how were the surveys sent out, promoted? We sent emails, principals communicated them, committee members, meetings, but a lot of it was digital. We sent out emails, we posted on social media, we posted on the electronic board. We shared it with our local mayors and community leaders, but we did print copies for our facilities and food service workers because we got feedback that there may be some struggles with using the computer. So during the professional development day, we printed some out. And that really actually helped to more than double our staff responses from the last survey. Going to the next slide, the parent surveys. So we only got 87 responses to the parent survey, but if you look at this slide, we got 21 parent responses in spring of 2022. So 87 is not enough. That's over a 300% increase. And this survey was a lot shorter. This survey was up for maybe 3 weeks because we had a hard deadline of October 31st where we had to end it. So we're doing better. We got a ways to go. Strengths on the parent survey, transportation was one. How strong, how safe do you feel your child is? You look at these, we got 77% favorable ratings under transportation. So our parents are happy with the transportation. Next slide. Parents felt that they were informed well by the school in relation to, their teachers telling them how their child is doing, things that are going on with the school. You see 67% favorable rating on just school information from parents. Areas of growth, next slide, jumping over to next one, parent engagement. And the ones that, I'm reading ones with headers, these are a little different than the ones that were uploaded into board docs. I asked Shay to upload the new one. So if you're looking at the ones in there, you'll have this one. So parent engagement, we got a 7% favorable responses, and what that tells us is what we know, our parents aren't well engaged, and so we have to continue to work to get them to school events, to get them to events like we had today, to the ribbon cutting. We had some parents show up. Next slide, safety at school. This is something that our parents are worried about. When we look at this slide, we got a 50% favorable rating. So half of the parents feel like their children are safe. It's not necessarily that half think they're unsafe, because another trend I noticed in the surveys, a lot of people played the middle. A lot of people didn't give a positive or a negative. They said, you know, in the middle. So, but we definitely want more than 50% of our parents feeling safe. Next one, community surveys. This one, we talked about, we got 12 responses. These are people who live in the community who are not parents. A lot of times it's a challenge to reach them because we don't necessarily have email addresses. One of the things we've done that we're beginning to do is send out mailers. So this mailer went out. Shay will share a copy. You actually probably got some of these at home. But this is a mail that went out with the CSIP plan and some recruiting information. We're working on a newsletter to go out to all the homes in the community, not just families, but anybody who lives in the community. So we think that'll help with that. But strengths out of those 12, frequency of communication, about half the people were satisfied with that. On to the next one, areas of growth. School image, they asked people to grade how they thought the school were. Again, a lot of people pick the C. A lot of people pick right in the middle, but we want them to give us an A or a B grade. Going on next, community engagement, sort of the same as parent engagement. We know that we're not pulling a ton of people into the district. I think it's growing, but we need to do better. Go to the next one, staff. So this is the one, like I said, it had a huge increase, 234 staff responses this year versus 105 in the spring of 2022. A lot of that is attributed to providing those paper copies, so that's something we'll continue to do. Strengths, job satisfaction, 67% of people had positive responses for job satisfaction. Areas of growth, recognition and appreciation, we had about 46% favorable on people feeling recognized, people feeling honored. Now that's something that we've been doing really since the survey going out. The staff member of the month, student of the month, we had right before winter break, 2 bowling nights where staff were able to come out and bowl and have free. So we expect that to go up because we're going to continue to do things like that. Going to the next one, feeling valued. That was another one where we need to improve, but along the same lines. Next slide, students. We had 176 student responses. 138 of those were older students, grade 6 and up. 38 from grades 3 through 5. Did not send out surveys before, so we don't have those numbers. Only the DESI ones. Jump to those. Strengths for the kids, self-belief. We had a lot of kids that felt they can do well in school and their teachers believe in them. To the next one, teacher expectations. They felt that their teacher had high expectations of them. Areas of growth with the students, quality of education. This question, all students receive high instruction. We need to do better in that. All students need to believe that they're receiving a quality education. Safety at school. I feel safe at school. We have 42% agree, 5% strongly agree. That's less than 50% of respondents feel safe at school. We have to do better there. And worry about violence was similar. School bullying, also sort of similar. Those are things that we're working to address, but it's good to see those here. So addressing the realities, what are we doing about this information? We're increasing and improving communication with stakeholders. So I mentioned we're mailing things home now, including newsletters that are going out, personal visits, more board briefs or 5 things you should know. Weekly videos, that's something we have to get back to. We did videos in the past. We've been so busy, but I've been working with my team so we can start getting more regular videos out. Podcasts, progress updates. On to the next page. Improve community relations with community partnerships. Again, we had a great event here with community partners tonight. Reopening the campuses for events. The board meetings here at the high school, so that's one thing. Live streaming, community outreach, town hall meetings. To the town hall meeting January 23rd at Westview Middle School. Celebrating excellence, again, we're doing more recognition of students, parents, scholars, community partners, Spirit Fridays, honoring retirees, and more. And so these are things that we're working to do. We're going to do another round of surveys in the spring. We'll have more time going in, so I expect to see an increase in all of the responses because we're just learning and continuing to grow. So are there any questions?
Let's reserve the questions. If you have some, if you would mind emailing him for time today. Thank you.
The next item is the program evaluation for teacher induction, mentoring. Making this presentation is Dr. Patton, the PD Patton, and this is compliant with student performance as well. Dr. Patton.
Good evening, and Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt Adams, colleagues and community. Can you all pull me? Do you have a perception? I'm presenting to you the evaluation for new teacher induction and mentoring for 22-23 school year. I'm gonna start with the changes made, and on each slide, I'll just highlight the most important things. You can review each of the bullet points when you have a moment. But for changes made, the big three I wanted to highlight are the teacher mentoring subcommittee that we created on the PDC that will help to lead a revision of the programming as well as to establish data on creating a BTAP internally within the district for second-year teachers. We created a schedule to conduct mentor-mentee triad meetings, which is what we're adding this year. And we're incorporating teacher wellness training into our mentor programming. Next slide, please. Goals and objectives, top ones to highlight, all of them kind of filter into the concepts of offering mentorship, curriculum training, initially at the onset, and then exposing teachers to veteran teachers and experienced teachers, providing coaching support, and retaining teachers. Next slide, please. Tools and criteria to evaluate the program. We mostly rely on needs assessments and surveys at this time. The subcommittee that's been created on the PDC, one of their major goals is to come up with additional, more robust ways to collect data to get more in-depth understanding of how we're performing with this teacher mentor program. This mentorship is one of the most effective strategies to retain and develop high-quality teachers. And so we would like to look at adding more teacher-created artifacts to the evaluation process to effectively assess teacher growth from the onset of the program to the conclusion. Next slide. Next slide, please. And success of the program, the things that I would like to highlight is that training and continued development of PDC members is occurring, and it assists with leading program improvements and meeting programmatic goals. We're also working on improving data collection processes, which allows for stronger accountability and monitoring for support with program completion. Next slide. Opportunities and next steps, the ones I want to highlight are, as mentioned before, we are incorporating triad meetings to meet with mentor and mentees to help assess and monitor the completion and progress of the mentor program, as well as collect data in the moment about how the program is working and the benefits as well as challenges that they're facing. We've created the subcommittee, I've already mentioned that, on the PDC to lead improving of the mentor program and the evaluation process. We're also looking to update and revise the mentor-mentee activities based on survey data from our mentor-mentees from 22-23. They did express a need to look at that list and update it and make more of the activities more aligned with current trends and practices. And then finally, we are looking to survey district staff to determine if there is an interest in developing an internal BTAP program for our district, for our teachers who have to complete that requirement as a part of these state teacher mentor guidelines. And that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions or concerns?
And again, we reserve those questions to be sent to you by email.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is the program evaluation for special school district. Making this presentation is Dr. Chandler.
Good evening, Special Administrative Board, KPA, school community. I'm Chad Lent. I'm the Director of Special Education from the school district. I'm going to present the special education evaluation tonight. First off, the first thing is, when we look at the evaluation process for special education, there are 3 different levels that we look at. We have the federal, state, and local areas. With the federal, basically what we're looking at is whether or not we meet the criteria for IDEA. At the state level, there's a student performance plan, and there are specific criteria the state sets out that we are needing to meet. And then locally, we set up our district plans for our area, our department here in special education. I guess I just talk a little bit about the changes that we made for last year. Basically, we really focused on high leverage practices in special education with support from our instructional coaches. We have 2 instructional coaches that provide quite a bit of support for our teachers. We've embedded those high leverage practices into their student growth plans, their educator growth plans, their evaluation processes. We've also introduced a new math program called Number World. We've been seeing some pretty good success with that. And then if you would go ahead and advance a couple slides. One more slide. So with the federal piece, again, we're looking at whether or not we meet the criteria for under IDEA. We met all areas, met or exceeded all areas except for the assessment performance, which is our math results. And so as a general conclusion, we did meet the requirements and purposes for IDEA. And then for the state plan, I didn't report all of the indicators because not all the indicators have been released yet by the state. So we don't actually know what the criteria is for whether or not we met those. But I did add a few things here. There are a couple areas that I was able to get some data for. The first one is our environment that we have students that are receiving services, how much time they're actually in gen ed. So there's 2 different areas, whether or not they're in gen ed, 80% or more, or 40% or less. We are just about to meet those criteria, but we are off by just a little bit. And then the other one is the graduation rates. After graduation, students in Riverview do not tend to go to higher education as students with IEPs, but we do meet and exceed the criteria for students to actually go into full employment. So. And then locally, what we look at is FastBridge data is a screening tool. We look at benchmark data, which is 3 times a year. We look at the average growth percentile. So we look at students where they are, their percentile, and we compare them to nationally to other students at that percentile and how much they grow between fall and winter and fall and spring. We look at reading and math. In the area of reading, we met the goal for fall and winter, but we did not meet that goal for fall and spring. In the area of math, which I think is in part with that new program that we've implemented, we did meet the goal for fall and winter and fall and spring. And this is not to say that there wasn't growth in the area of reading. There was actually growth. If you look at the national percentile numbers there, you can see that there was actually pretty good gain. And in fact, actually 2022-23, our fall data is at the national percentile is actually close to the spring data of the year before. So that would mean that we actually didn't lose a whole lot of ground. Slide. As we go into this year, so we are continuing to focus on high level practice in special education, continuing to use research-based strategies. We're going to continue to roll out Numbers World. We're continuing to check fidelity on that, doing coaching around that. We're participating with Riverview's professional learning with their reading programs, like Learner Inspired. We're going to continue to monitor our critical 6 classroom universals, and we have this year began to modify our data team process. So we're looking at a little bit more program data, and we're getting some positive feedback about that.
Thank you. That concludes our items for discussion. We will now move to our items our items of information. We will now move to our items of discussion. The first item is policy recommendations. Making this presentation very succinctly is Ms. Jennifer Wood.
Hello, tonight I will be presenting policy IGB A-2. MSBA has revised and renamed this policy so that it applies only to special education. The language related to students served under Section 504 as the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Americans with Disability Act is now addressed under policy IGB, accommodations of students with disabilities. IGB A-2 policy provides the details about how students
with identified disabilities should be educated, the educational parameters, and provides avenues to parents who may feel their students were not receiving an appropriate education. This version is applicable to Riverview Garden School District because our students who qualify for special educational services are serviced by special school district, as Mr. Chad Lynn just did his presentation. So it is recommended that the district accept the revision as recommended.
Thank you.
Our next item is Destiny Manager Renewal. Making this presentation is Ms. Tanya Ross, ELA Coordinator, and in compliance with CSIP student improvement.
Good evening again. So I'm up to discuss the renewal for Destiny Manager. Destiny Manager is our operating system that our librarians use. It helps with inventory. It helps with giving students information about books prior to them checking it out. In addition, Destiny Manager also is a way for our students to just get familiar with the 21st century library and the way things are organized. So no longer the old system. However, you do see numbers still, the Dewey Decimal System still being used. You still see it being posted, but total transfer is because everything is digital now. We're not at a point where students are doing these things on their own. However, that is the way we use the Destiny Manager system. The cost of the Destiny Manager is $26,991. This is a shared cost that we, the C&I department pays $3,859 of that. And then the MIS department pays the additional amount of $23,000. Any questions?
I don't think that, I do have a quote question.
Okay.
Do you have, any additional quotes that are the only one that do this and that's why you're doing sole source, or have you obtained other quotes?
Right, so we have entertained the idea of looking at another system. And I don't know if Tina is online tonight.
I'm not sure.
No.
So it's more of a technology issue as to why we haven't done an overhaul of Destiny Manager. It's more costly to go backwards and start over than to stay with the current program that we're using.
No question. The next one is the renewal of World Book Online.
All right, so World Book Online is also under our librarians, even though it is used district-wide at all levels. World Book Online, just in a nutshell, it replaced the old encyclopedia. It's the digital platform of the old encyclopedia. However, there are several platforms that work inside of World Book Online. There's early literacy games and activities. There are text features to help with the research as students are learning to organize and how to actually do research. World Book Online also allows for it vets the material, especially for our younger scholars. We don't have to worry about them going on the websites that lead them in places that they should not be, because there's no way really to control that. So that's another reason why we have invested and continue to use World Book Online. To speak on the data, if we were to compare this year's data with last year's data at this point, we do have an increase of about 200, about 2,000, a difference between January of 2023 and 2024. That data has been provided for you. The cost of the renewal for Destiny Manager is $4,588. Are there any questions?
You mean World Book?
Well, I'm sorry. Thank you. World Book Online.
The next item is surplus library books, also making this presentation, Ms. Ross.
Yes, again, so it's all library business tonight. And so with that being said, we have two schools that submitted documentation of reading books. And our current policy requests allows us or makes us to have to deem books surplus before we can rid of the books. Meadows submitted a little less than 2,000 books that were weeded. And then Highlands submitted about 1,000. And so right now we're looking to release those books to Salvation Army, but we do use other community organizations do take the books as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is the Power School Spark Hire Renewal. Making this presentation, Mr. Travis Boyd Senior, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and this is in compliance with staffing and workforce.
Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt Adams, colleagues and community. Today I have before you the renewal for the Power Schools Spark Hire program. This platform is the platform that we use currently to do video interviewing as we onboard people or we hire for the district. Are there any questions?
The next item is the staffing plan adjustment, also being presented by Mr. Ford Senior.
Good evening again, Special Administrative Board. Each year, we assess the needs that we see for the staffing plan. We have projected needs that we have for next year based off needs that we have seen this year. These staffing plan adjustments are being presented today to make sure that we address the needs that we see. Two of the items that we are requesting an allotment for is the Assistant Superintendent of Leadership and Accountability. This is an allotment that we've had in the past. We reclassified this allotment because of the several schools being identified as turnaround schools, and to meet those immediate needs based off that state mandate. Now we're asking that for the upcoming school year, that allotment be re-added to the staffing plan. We're also asking for an administrative assistant for that position. And then we have two other positions that are identified on here. It's the Executive Director of Student, School, and Community Support Services and the Director of Assessment. These allotments have title changes in order to keep us in compliance with MSIP 6. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Like, when you say title change from Dr. Patton's title or?
The Executive Director of Student, School, and Community Support Services is being changed from the Assistant Superintendent from that same title.
Okay, so her title will no longer exist.
That title.
So we, based upon our enrollment numbers and DESI MSIP 6, we can only have a certain amount of assistant superintendents. As you know, 2 years ago, we took away assistant superintendent for leadership and accountability when we had our schools made turnaround schools. And looking at the number of schools and what needs to happen as it relates to CFIP and getting more accountability, we want to reinstate assistant superintendent for leadership and accountability. Therefore, we have to reduce an assistant superintendent. So we're changing the title from assistant superintendent for student support services to executive director. And that will keep us in compliance with MSIP 6. The next item is federal programs, title grant acceptance for 23-24. This is revisions and carryover. Ms. Curtis says it should be her presentation will be 30 seconds.
Good evening, Special Administrative Board, colleagues, and community. Tonight, I bring to you all carryover funds have been allocated to the district. I will not read the entire amounts. They are listed. However, The total amount for the entire district has increased by $2 million, a little over $2 million for each funding source. The amounts are listed. Are there any questions? Now, and it came to the student. Yes, ma'am. I have to use words because nobody knew how to order. Are there any other questions? Those are items for discussion. Okay, thank you.
We would now move to the approval of the consent agenda. May I have a? I'm doing all in favor.
I'm sorry. I have a, I would like to make a recommendation with the thoughts of superintendent. Should we expedite that?
Which? I think it's already in here.
I didn't see his name on the bills.
The question, Dr. Singleton, is one of our vendors, and if we can expedite that payment. I think it's in the system, I just don't know if it was up for today, I thought it was.
I didn't see it on the bills.
I only know that it's been processed. I don't know what stage it's in after I approve it in the system, so I'm not sure where it is.
We can look into it, and if the board, is okay with that expediting it. then we
Sure,
will.
go through the normal process of, you know,
So do we just, make a motion to, include it, like amend our consent to add that? I'm just trying to see how to address it.
Well, the first thing I think would be the proper thing to do is, let the whole board know what we're talking about. Is this in reference to, the item that was given to us for review? Yes.
Okay.
Board president can give you an approval and then, our board can affirm that at the next board meeting. And that is our practice, that the board president can give, the finance.
And
Correct.
it would be, and then it could be.
We'll send that.
Rescind.
Right.
So what we'll do is we'll look into it, see
Right.
where it is in the process,
Right.
try to expedite it. We'll contact Ms. Moore Real, she can give us approval, and then the board can vote on it at the next meeting. So did everyone hear what to say that with regard to this situation? This was the information that was shared with us in case it came out, during our open session meeting. And what did you say again? Okay. So we will see, it is in the process. It has been approved out of student support services. We know it's in the system, we just don't know where it is in the system. We can look into that tomorrow. Reach out to Ms. Maura Real, she can give approval to cut the check out of sequence. And then the board can approve it at the next meeting. Thank you. Thanks.
I would like to make a motion to approve the consent.
Motion has been made. Second. It's been seconded by Ms. Lang. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay. Items for action. This is the federal programs, title grant acceptance. May I have a motion to accept that money? So moved. Ms. Lang makes the motion to accept. May I have a second? Second. It's seconded by Dr. Coleman. All in favor? Aye. All right. Finally, we are at the point of adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, so, Dr. Von, we make the motion and Dr. Coleman second.